This video discusses Lomography Metropolis color negative C41 film, which is rated from 100 to 400 ISO, looks at how to use it, the film's characteristics, technical details as available, which are not really many, and sample images. Metropolis is a medium to fast film depending on which ISO you shoot it at. It's available in 110, 35mm, and 120. I feel like it was supposed to be available on 16mm, but ended up not being. If I'm wrong about that, there will be a comment correcting me. I shot it in all three of the formats that it's available for still imagery, and I found the results across them perplexing. I think that's the best way to put it. This section contains my perception on different film characteristics. I'll discuss how I see the film's grain, tonal range, acutance, contrast, sharpness, gamma, and then I'll provide some added notes, suggested good uses, and thoughts on how to best digitize this film. For grain, it depends so much on your chosen format and enlargement amount. 110 exhibits the most grain, which stands to reason as the enlargement for it must be the greatest to have digital images on your screen that are the same size as 35 or 120. But as this visual demonstrates, each format actually has the same grain profile. The grain for 120 images is much more pleasing due to the large image area and the reduced enlargement requirement for the same size print or digital display compared to the 110 and 35mm. Tonality and tonal range varies by format, with 110 having the least and 120 the most. In general, highlights are lost very easy, and shadows retain very little detail. For acutance, it's a little bit soft by my eye. Contrast is strong, but the transitions between contrasting areas are, compared to high acutance film, gradual. For contrast, it's high. As noted, shadows die and highlights explode very easily. This is a film which will yield exaggerated image contrast in essentially any lighting. For sharpness, it's a bit low to my eye. Even with top flight lenses, details on Metropolis tended to be slightly soft. Part of that could be the graininess, part of that could be the contrast and the acutance, but in general, I found that this was a far less sharp film than other color films on the market. I found the color profiles of each format fascinating as well. The 120 images all had these very warm tones. The 35mm all skewed green. In fact, the 35mm images you see in here that are not green because I color corrected them. The 110 images had colors that were the most balanced. I can't explain why that is. This is all supposed to be the exact same stuff, yet it absolutely performed like three completely different films. Also, another thing about this film is that it delivers generally very desaturated colors, which I loved in 120, was pretty cool with in 110, and hated in 35mm. I can't explain why the film works like this. It is absolutely fascinating how differently the formats behaved with this stock. For good uses, I'm going to direct you to moody shots designed to convey a sense of place, an emotion, or an artistic expression. This is not a stock that I would say to use for demanding work. Even in 120, which far and away performs the best, this is a stock that will underperform many clients' expectations. There are exceptions to this. If you're shooting fashion or high art or an avant-garde wedding or portrait shoot, those could be viable and very good exceptions to the rule. Also, this stock is absolutely perfect for your "Our dystopian future is now" cityscape portfolio work. That's really the image aesthetic that it conveys very well. And if you can embrace the aesthetic of this stock in whichever format you shoot, you can really get some captivating images from it. All of the images in this video were scanned by a high-end lab scanner. In general, digital conversion is fine, but the smaller formats retain some digital noise. Lomography rates this as 100 to 400 ISO, giving it a stop either way of 200 or 2 stops of under or exposure latitude. Personally, I think this film performs like a 200 ISO film, and that shooting it at 100 is a stop over. At least to my eyes, that's the case based on negative density. So my theory is that this is a 200-ish film with limited latitude. Don't quote me on that. I didn't design the emulsion. That's just my theory. I shot this at various ISOs. In 120, I exclusively used 100 ISO. Or eyeballed it. I don't carry a light meter with my 120 film cameras, really. I just tried to eyeball 100 ISO. At any rate, in 35mm, I used 100 and 125. In 110, I used 80 and 250. And that's because in 110, the Pentax Auto 110's 2 ISO settings are 80 and 250. I found that slower speeds work a bit better, and that shooting this at a higher ISO yielded noise and contrast reduction. So I would advise against much anything above 160, personally, for my own image aesthetic. This film benefits a bit from having a little bit too much light, because with the way this emulsion works, the shadows don't develop very well, and thin shadow areas tend to lead to a lot of digital noise when scanning. Filters won't help you much unless you're using an ND or a CPL to extend exposure time. Any colored filter is absolutely going to destroy this film's color profile. As for format, I preferred 120 and would exclusively buy this in 120 in the future. I liked that a 110 film is available, and I found the results to be good by 110 standards, but 110 color film development is very, very expensive for the results that it delivers. 35mm for me likely won't be a format I return to with this stock. I found that it had too much grain for the format and lacked some of the image depth and definitely lacked the quality of color toning I found in the 120 images. I developed this exclusively in C41 and did not attempt cross-processing. Given how this stock performs in C41, I don't think that cross-processing would yield any benefits, and also the amberish brown burnt sienna color to the film base would be a challenge to work with if you process this in reversal chemistry. Part of what makes this film very exciting to me is that it was formulated, as Lomography states, from scratch, and it was also the first new film emulsion released internationally in 5 years. Personally, I'm glad that Lomography is putting work into developing new emulsions. When it comes to this specific film stock, Metropolis performs like an octobase made visual with bold results that you feel more than see. There's no room with this film to try and manipulate it for different uses. It does one thing, it does only one thing, and it does that one thing pretty well. It delivers a grungy, urban, dystopian aesthetic with neither apology nor exception. If you're going to use this film, you're using it because you want that look that it delivers. You want it to do the one thing that it does consistently and well. Embrace that look. Don't try to deviate from it. Find subjects for which that look is well suited. Put your subject in even light and let the background do as it may. If you're photographing people, bold colors will be muted, so grayscale tones in their clothes will help make their skin tones pop a bit. As long as you set yourself up to understand what this film does and work within the parameters of what it does, you're going to have a hard time being disappointed by the results. Thank you for watching this video. Please give me a thumbs up. That lets me know that I'm on the right track producing content which is useful and helpful to you. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comments section below. I'm pretty good about checking these every couple of days and answering questions. If you have any suggestions or ideas for future videos, and if I have the technical know-how and equipment, I'm more than happy to make those. One last thing. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. I gotta get up, Steinbeck. I have to turn off the camera.